Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about another news story we had this week. The tragic story of a young lady called Natasha White, a young university worker who took her own life as the result of a gambling addiction. Basically, she had become addicted to online casinos, playing mainly sort of roulette and other games. And had lost a year's salary, £20,000 over the space of about a year, I understand. Now, unfortunately, tragically, this story isn't unique. It's just, if you do what I do and you search for gambling stories on the regular, I do, because obviously I like to keep up to date with the latest legislation. I like to find things to talk about. But yeah, I'm regularly searching for gambling stories, and unfortunately Natasha White's story is not a unique one. It's very, very common, but I wanted to talk about that today really because of what her father said, and just sort of give my opinion. Now, her father has pinned the blame for Natasha's death on the gambling companies themselves, and also on the banks for not recognising that she had a problem. Now, before I go any further, I want to, address any potential claims that I'm being hypocritical with what I'm about to say. I am a massive, massive advocate for personal responsibility when it comes to quitting gambling. It's one of the more controversial things I've talked about when I've talked about FOBTs and bookies and all the rest of it, and how whether or not you're being cheated out of your money, whether things are rigged or whatever, all of that nonsense. Regardless of that, it is your responsibility to recognise and address your problem, which thus makes all the rest of, the debate kind of irrelevant. And I 100% stand by that. I'm not welching on that at all. But what I want to talk about today is if we assume we take personal responsibility and we make the efforts we can to address a gambling problem, to quit and to control our own behaviours, which is incredibly hard. I often say that, if you're quitting gambling, attempting to do it using willpower alone is pretty futile. But we can look, and it's not hypocritical to look at ways in which we can be protected by the third-party organisations, so the casinos themselves and also the banks. Now, if we start with the casinos, of course, casinos advertise all the responsible gambling elements. They do provide, every online casino I've ever seen, ever played at historically, has provided, call-off periods, deposit limits, self-exclusion, loss limit, all of those sorts of things, which is, it's a start, isn't it? The problem with these, and the reason they fall down so typically, is because when you sign up for a new casino, you generally don't think there and then about that side of it. You just want to get your details in, make a deposit, and start playing. So even if it gives you the option to set a deposit limit up front, most people typically will just click through that bit in the same way as you accept terms and conditions, don't you? You don't read all the terms and conditions before you sign up. You should have a quick scroll through, tick the box, and off you go. And a lot of people treat the responsible gambling elements in the same way as we treat terms and conditions. They just kind of go, okay, yeah, agree, whatever. Some people will retrospectively go back to them. More often than not, if people do go retrospectively back to the responsible gambling area of a casino page, it's normally to self-exclude, because they've got to the stage that I and many others like me have got to, where their gambling has got out of control. So the gambling companies have the facility, and I'm not saying they put this in there, through the goodness of their own heart, through their own goodwill. I'm pretty certain it's part of the Gambling Commission's, regulation and guidelines that they have to have these facilities in place. But they are there for you to use. However, the big thing that struck me in Natasha White's case is that she was able to gamble an annual salary, within the space of 12 months. If I was to go out tomorrow and get a loan, which I won't because nobody will lend me any money, but that's by the by, that's another video. If I was to go out tomorrow and get a loan, or get a mortgage, or lease a car, every company, every bank, every financial institution, every car dealer would take me through an affordability check where they would look at my income, they would look at my housing costs, so my rent in my case, or my bills, anything else that I have that goes out on a regular monthly basis. They would take all of that into account. They would look at the number at the bottom, which is what I had left from my salary after all of these things have come out, including other expenses like shopping and toiletries and all of that nonsense, right? They look at the number at the bottom, which is always tragically small compared to the number at the top. And they go, right, can you afford the repayments on this? Is that number at the bottom big enough to cover the repayments on this car, the repayments on this mortgage, the repayments on this loan? Do you have enough spare money after all your money goes out to do this? But yet, when we play at an online casino, because it's counted as a sort of a one-time transaction, there is no way of monitoring this. What I believe we should have, or what I believe should be implemented in all online casinos, is an affordability check, whereby people's credit limit, so to speak, so the amount you're able to deposit, your annual deposit limits, possibly not annual because that means you could lose a year's salary or whatever, a year's disposable income in a day, but if your monthly deposit limits were in line with what is affordable to you. Now, of course, people can lie. It's the same way as if you got in deep with debt like I did, you lied to payday loan companies. You don't tell them about all the other debts you've got because they don't care, because they don't want to hear it, so they won't bother checking on your credit score. If you lie to them enough that you pass the obligatory affordability check, they will give you the loan. So what you need to do, what the casinos need to implement, is a way by which, in the same way as you would for a mortgage or some sort of car finance, you have to submit a pay slip or some form of proof of income, and then if you don't provide all the affordability details, they take a good estimate. So for just take a generic average for rent, bills, blah 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 blah. So at least they have a fair to moderate idea of what is potentially affordable to that player. And this is going to be a lot of faffing about, but I think this should be done completely upfront before any deposits can be made, before any games can be played, alongside all the know your customer stuff, all the verification, all the validation. You might as well do all that at the same time. This will do two things. Firstly, as explained, it would allow online casinos and online betting companies to better regulate the spending of their players to see if they're affordable. Because losing £100 to someone could be the equivalent of someone losing £100,000. It's all relative, but online casinos don't see that. They allow people on modest incomes to play at high roller stakes because ultimately they don't care, and there's no way, or at the moment, of them knowing whether or not that's affordable to you. The second thing, of course, putting this measure in place will do is it'll slow down the sign-up process. Now, how many of us, having self-excluded from one account or whatever, or multiple accounts, have, maybe after a few drinks, as is always the case in my case, gone and looked for another casino to sign up at, another casino to play at? I know I've done it, several times, and I've signed up to a new casino. If I'd done that and they'd said, right, okay, yep, you can sign up, welcome on board, but before you play, you need to provide your ID, your proof of address, and your source of wealth, which is something they ask for big players. Someone like the Bandit, for example, who I'm sure you know who the Bandit is, but when he plays at casinos and he plays on the big stakes he plays on, a lot of them will ask for a source of wealth, which basically is exactly what it sounds like really, is his proof of where his money comes from. So if we do all of that up front, then the moment will pass for me. And there's so many instances when I've absolutely done my crust on online slots or whatever, by the time the verification had been done, by the time the proof of wealth had been assessed, verified, all the rest of it, I probably would have passed out asleep on the sofa with a bottle of wine, and the next day I won't want to gamble. So, although I guarantee, actually, to be fair, if this ever came in, the verification process would be sped up tenfold. No more waiting 2 days for your documents to be verified so you can withdraw. Oh no, they'll be doing it within the hour. I guarantee you that much. But at least it would be one way in which the online casinos could safeguard you and make sure that, yeah, if there was a monthly deposit limit in place, all you're able to do, as bad as it is to blow all your disposable income, and you're not getting people in more and more debt, more and more trouble with their spending. What about the banks? Well, I don't know about you, but historically, if I've gone abroad and made more than 2 or 3 transactions on my bank card, you get a phone call from the bank to say, Mr. Bowyer, I understand you're in Tenerife at the moment. Is this you? And you're like, yeah, it's me. You've made three purchases here at San Miguel in the space of an hour. Is everything okay? So yeah, I'm fine actually. I'm doing really well. You don't get it so much anymore because a lot more of the cards are sort of international, but certainly banks have, the technology, they have the ways in place to flag up suspicious activity or activity that is not in line with your normal spending. It cannot be difficult, surely, for them to flag up a number of, rapid deposits, one after the other, to a company normally registered in Malta or somewhere. It must be very, very easy to tweak their fraud system to detect that and to determine that this is maybe not out of character spending, maybe not, fraudulent spending, but certainly a dangerous pattern of spending. And they can then maybe put a 24-hour block on your account or something, some way by which, to stop you gambling and to make you address it. I have a Monzo account. Blimey, that must be 3 videos in a row now I haven't mentioned a Monzo account, but here it is. I have a Monzo account, and that has the facility to block online gambling transactions. Every merchant, be it an online casino, be it an online bookies, be it a bricks and mortar bookmakers, has an online merchant code which is recognised by the banks. And it's how, when you have one of these banking apps, it helps you categorise your spending, because you can see what you spent on petrol, you can see what you spent at the supermarket, blah, blah, blah. And with a Monzo account, and there are other accounts that do it as well, if it detects a merchant code that is a gambling business, it won't authorise the transaction, so the transaction will fail. I've never actually tested this, and maybe what I will do in a future video is try this and actually let you know how it works. But certainly it's been, as far as a deterrent, it's been a good deterrent, because I wouldn't want to walk into a bookies with a card and have it declined, because that's terribly embarrassing. So that has worked. So maybe, banks are able to categorise these transactions, and there should be some flag that comes up and says this person has made 4 or 5 gambling transactions within a 2-3 hour period, and maybe block the card, get you to phone the bank. Again, just allow that call-off period, that step away, that need to take a step back from the FOBT, to step away from the laptop, even if it's a long phone call, a long wait on hold with the bank to clear this authorization, to get your card back up and running. Hopefully it provides enough call-off time for you to be able to reassess your situation and maybe not continue your gambling. With the gambling block on the Monzo account and with the gambling block on a lot of the other bank accounts, you switch it on via the app. Simple, push button on. If you want to turn that gambling block off, you have to phone the bank, and I think that there's also an additional 48-hour calling off period. So say I suddenly had a real strong urge to go and gamble, even if I plucked up the balls to ring them up and say, I want to gamble, turn my block off, I'd have to wait 48 hours anyway. And we know what gambling urges are like. They're immediate. They want that immediate dopamine hit. They're not going to wait 48 hours, so the whole thing's pointless. So banks can do more. And look, in the same way that there are the responsible gambling functions on the casino websites, most banks do have a lot of these facilities in place. A lot of banks do have the option to block gambling transactions, to restrict certain types of deposits. you know, if you call them up and discuss your options with them, and I'd strongly recommend you do that, certainly until something better comes along, then you can put these blocks, you can put these measures in place. But like the casinos, they're not widely advertised as maybe they should be, and they're not mandatory like maybe they should be. And maybe things like that, they may have saved Miss White in this tragic case. But unfortunately, like I say, she's not isolated. One thing I will say, and one quite scathing thing I think, that this case particularly has flagged up. Now, this is slightly off tangent, but historically, if we go back many, many years, gambling has historically always been a male-dominated pursuit, hasn't it? If you look at the oldest images of gambling, it's people sitting around, normally playing poker, you know, in the Wild West and the one-armed bandits, and it's always very male-dominated, and it's continued to be so, which is why when online casinos came along, online bookmakers came along, all the sports betting companies upped their game. They targeted men, lots of adverts of blokes in pubs drinking beer, watching the football and all that sort of business. They targeted who they believed to be their core demographic, because of course if you're spending money on advertising, you target the people who you are likely to get the biggest return from. It's why you always see Ray Winston pop up in the middle of football, because they know that their target demographic is probably men between the age, 18 and 50, who watch football on a Sunday afternoon and are likely to want to have a punt. Because of the saturation of the market, a lot of the bookies and online casinos realised that they needed to target a different demographic. And being the cliched sexist idiots they are, they thought, oh, well, you know, online bingo. Women love bingo. I mean, yeah, talk about a cliche, but they did. And along came the online bingo companies. You know, Foxy Bingo, Sun Bingo, all advertised by Barbara Windsor and Kerry Katona and all these fun, oh God, do I was going to say fun in association with Kerry Katona? All these female celebrities to advertise these fun and sociable forms of gambling. You'll see the bingo adverts normally during daytime TV, commercial breaks during daytime TV. It always used to be Jeremy Kyle, didn't it? Sponsored by Foxy Bingo. And they don't sell it just purely as gambling like they might to the blokes. You know, you can win 10 quid off a £2 bet or whatever. They'll sell it as, oh, you know, come along and join the fun. Make new friends. Through an online chat on a bingo site. It's just, so they very, very cynically targeted a new, previously untapped audience in order to try and get, you know, regain some of the market that become so saturated. And then things like Pink Casino came along. Now, I have an intense dislike for the company that runs Pink Casino. Why? Well, in case you weren't aware, until relatively recently, and I think they had to change it, Pink Casino's tagline, which obviously, given the name and given the form of advertising, was a casino aimed entirely at women. Their slogan, their tagline was, "It's our little secret." Not only does that sound slightly rapey, it's also a horrible, horrible form of marketing when gambling is such a horrible secret addiction. It's basically saying, don't tell anyone that you're gambling at our casino. It's our secret. Horrible. So anyway, my condolences, of course, to Miss White's family. I don't think I'll stick. If I have stuck a name in the title of this video, then please be assured it's not for any clickbait purposes. But it was something I wanted to talk about. It's another unfortunate morning Googling the gambling news. But I know it won't be the last until there's some major changes in place. I'm still an advocate for personal responsibility. If you have a gambling problem, then you need to address it. You need to do something to address it. But there are things you can put in place, methods you can put in place, and there is help out there if you need it. I'll put some links in the description below. But sorry it's not been a fun one today, guys, but I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching this far. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, then please do so, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks a lot, guys.